I never know what quite to do in these whenever we have time off like we've had. So we're just going to go ahead and stay on course, which I really debated. I really didn't know what to do for sure because I really liked last week's lesson. Almost wanted to do last week's lesson, but we're not. We're going to just go ahead and jump to the end. We're going to do the last lesson in this. We're going to be in Psalm 91 today, the protection of God's name. And so, but I would encourage you that if you didn't take time to read or to just to read through your quarterly on those previous two lessons, the salvation in God's name and what was the other one? The righteousness of God's name. I would just encourage you to do that because those were a couple of really good lessons, especially the one last week on the righteousness of God's name. It's a great lesson. But today we're going to be in Psalm 91, and we're going to be talking about the protection of God's name. And I love this lesson as well, so it's going to be a good one to wrap up this unit on. So if I love it, it's probably going to be bad. That's the way it usually goes. So if I hate it, it usually goes pretty good. If I love it, it usually goes really bad. So maybe we'll shoot somewhere in the middle on this one today. But anyway, what the Scripture teaches is really strong. We're going to be looking at and talking about protection, and in our day and in our culture, security's kind of become a big thing, right? I mean, it's kind of weird to think about that, but just the fact that we have security cameras in our parking lot and in our church, I mean, that's like, to me, that's like foreign, right? Because, I grew up in that, well, a lot of us grew up in the era where you didn't lock your house, you didn't lock your car, you left your keys in, you know what I mean? When you went to the grocery store, you just left the keys in it, you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff, but, anymore, you can't do that kind of stuff. Even if you lock it up, doesn't mean somebody's going to knock the window out of it and reach in there and grab, you got to lock it up, and then if you're going to leave anything, you got to hide it. You can't leave anything in plain sight, stuff like that. And so, what are some of the things that people look to for security these days? What? Cash. Money? Yeah, money's a security thing for a lot of people. So people tend to get really nervous about that because of it, right? What else do people look to for security?
I don't know, when I read this, I thought about, he talked about safety of his kids. And all I can think about is you basically bubble wrap your kids nowadays. None of them can get a cut or a scar. It's, because we didn't, who among us owned a bicycle helmet when we were young?
Right. Right. You had to survive when you know what I mean? You just had to be tough, right?
Many of us rode in the back of a pickup on the highway forever.
Yeah. How many of you flew out of one? Right? I mean, I flew out of one once, You
learned to tuck and roll.
One day. Yeah. Right, absolutely. We were talking, get together with a bunch of my cousins over the holiday, and, we were talking about some of the things that happened and some of the things that we got into and some of the things that we did and some of the things that I did when I was in high school, I wouldn't have graduated today. No, I'm serious, right? Some of the things I did, I wouldn't have been able to keep playing sports. I wouldn't have been able to keep being in school. They kicked me out. The world has changed. It's not as easy. It's not as forgiving. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways, even like in schools and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. You can't take your deer rifle to school anymore, can you?
And we did.
We did. Yeah.
I know, but yeah, it's different. Times are changing, and I'll just I kind of went kind of fast today through prayer requests, right? Because our list has been really long lately, right? And, there was a time in our class that I didn't do prayer requests at all, right? Some of you have been around long enough you remember that. Part of that, Tish, was because we were meeting between those two services and we didn't have very much time. And I knew if we spent any time on prayer requests at all, we wouldn't get any lesson in, right? Well, now we got a little bit more time, and so we've kind of expanded it. But over the last couple of weeks, you want to look at our prayer, it's a long list, right? We have a lot of things, and I'm glad that we can look back at a lot of the things that are on this list, and we can go, okay, God's worked there, God's answered that, Selah's, everything went good with that, all these different things right on down our list, and the way God has been good and God has answered. But at the same time, just within my personal life and our church life and the life of our community group, there's just been a lot, right? And sometimes it's just like, it gets to be the point where it's just like almost too much. You know what I mean? Does anybody else feel that? Do you feel that? As a community group leader and a person whose spouse is on, you know what I mean? Then it's not just within our community group, it's all these other things, you know what I mean, that I know that she's got and she's carrying and Chad's, and it just becomes a lot, right? And it's a lot to hold up under. It's a lot to bear up under sometimes. But we think about protection. We think about security. God is the one that can give us peace of heart. God is the one that can give us peace of mind. He's the one that we can trust with all of these things on our prayer list, all of these things that are going on. And I don't mean that there's bad things in our church, you know what I mean? I just mean it's just normal stuff, right? It's just life, It's not like we're in turmoil. It's just there's all these things that are pushing in on all of God's people. And so we're going to kind of talk about that today in the context of this lesson and see how we can trust God to strengthen us and help us in times of difficulty. And not just times of difficulty, but all the time, to be aware of the protection that is available to us. So we're going to be in Psalm 91 today. And Psalm 91 is, just for the little background, is an anonymous psalm. We don't know who the writer of it is. But we ultimately know that God is the author, right? Even though we don't know who human person that wrote it down, we know that ultimately God, through the Holy Spirit, is the author of all Scripture. And so it is a call for us to trust in God's care for us as His people. And the central theme of this psalm is that God is our sanctuary. Okay? God is our dwelling place. If we are in Christ, we are in God. That everything that happens around us, He is our sanctuary. He is our deliverer. He is our rescuer. And we can and we must trust Him. And when we do, God will always prove Himself faithful to us. Somebody read for us Psalm 91, verses 1 through 6.
The one who lives under the protection of the Most High dwells in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say concerning the Lord, who is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. He Himself will rescue you from the bird trap, from the destructive plague. He will cover you with His feathers. You will take refuge under His wings. His faithfulness will be a protective shield. You will not fear the terror of the night, the arrow that flies by day, the plague that stalks in darkness, or the pestilence that ravages at noon.
Okay, so here in verse 1, we get a couple of names here that describe God. The first name in the first line of verse 1. God is called Most High. The one who lives under the protection of the Most High. The Hebrew word is Elion. It actually literally just means highest. Okay? He is the highest. He is higher than anything. He is above all things, right? And so, even though we don't know who wrote this psalm, can I tell you who I think wrote it? Y'all care? Is that like blasphemy? I think it's Moses. Okay? I think this is a Moses psalm. Because the one right before it is a Moses psalm, the one right before that is a Moses psalm, and it kind of fits in this theme. And then the other thing about it is whenever you think about this psalm, and maybe I'm wrong, please tell me. I think and the thing that I love about it, and I may be totally wrong, okay? But the thing that I love about it is think about Moses. Think about his life. Think about his time with Israel, okay? And where were they during all that? Almost the whole time, they're in wilderness. They're in desert. They're in a place of no protection, right? They're in places where they're totally exposed. And yet, there is this idea that the one who lives under the protection of Most High, right? And so, even that idea of Most High, I mean, I think that's maybe, possibly coming from a place of Moses, who's saying, our God was bigger than Egypt's gods. Our God is bigger than all the gods around us. Our God is above all of our adversaries, all of our enemies. They were completely encompassed. They were completely surrounded by enemies at all times, right? And Moses, or whoever, the author is saying, our God is above it all. He is over it all. He's bigger than all of those things. The God that the Israelites worship, He's above all the forces in the universe, both seen and unseen. He is above them all. He is the one who sits enthroned above all things. He is the owner of all things. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He knows when a sparrow falls to the ground. The earth and all that is in it belongs to Him. Right? That is our God. He is Most High. And He is above all things. And so when the psalmist says that term, Most High, He is highest. He is above all things. He is the owner of everything. Everything is under His authority. And then He uses another name to describe God when He says, the one who dwells under the protection of Most High dwells in the shadow of the Almighty. And so if God is Most High, meaning height, conveying ownership, then Almighty is might. It's power. So what He has the ability to do what? If He's Almighty, if He's all-powerful, what does He have the ability to do?
Whatever He wants.
Whatever the heck He wants. Right? He is above all things. He is over all things. And He has the power to do all things. His power is unmatched. His power was unmatched in Egypt. Right? I mean, I like the little show on Discovery Channel, Expeditions Unknown, right? I like that guy, that Joshua Gates, and he goes around and he's looking at all these, and he's all the time talking about all these great and powerful civilizations, right? And they all end up crumbling, right? In some way, some form, some fashion or another. And I love the ones that when they're doing Egypt, right? And because some of the things that they did, some of the things that they accomplished, I'm just like, wow, that's pretty awesome. You know what I mean? But then I think about that, at the height of all that, God kind of stepped into the thing and said, yeah, I'm above all that. Right? I'm bigger than all that. I can deliver my people, and there's nothing that they can do about it. But so He's got the power. His power is unmatched. There's nothing He can't do. And so and what does He do with that? So He's Most High, and He's got all this power and all this strength. And what does He do with all that power and all that strength, according to this psalm? He protects you. Isn't that cool? He's Most High. He's got all this power. He's got all this strength. And what's He do with it? He protects you. He provides for you. And that kind of is laid out there for us in verse 2. When he goes on then and he says, what will I say concerning the Lord? Oh, now here we get another name, right? What's the name? Lord. Now, so, and what is Lord? Huh? Yahweh, what is Yahweh? Huh? I am. It's I am. Okay? It's covenant name. This is now covenant name of God. So he's above all, he's got all this power, and he's a promise-keeping God. And whenever you hear Lord, whenever you hear Yahweh, you ought to think I am, and you ought to think about all the promises God made to Moses. Right? And he is this promise-keeping God. And so by invoking now his covenant name, all the promises ought to start coming to mind for us, reminding the reader that God is a God who keeps his covenant. What shall I say concerning the Lord, the covenant promise-keeping God? What does he say? He is my what? Refuge. What comes to your mind when you think about refuge?
Safe place.
Safe place. Okay? For my son-in-law Brandon, whenever he thinks refuge, he thinks place where I can't shoot ducks. Right? Waterfowl season just ended. He's been hunting every chance he can get. I don't get waterfowl hunters. Let me just tell you. I mean, I just don't get it. Especially the way he does it and his friends. They go up to Nottoway, up by Maitland, and they get up, Jeff, they get up at the crack of dawn. They get up there at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning just to be put in a drawing to have a chance to go out and hunt that day. Right? And over half the time they don't get drawn. And so over half the time they get up, they go up there, they drag their little layback boats up there and everything, and there's no hunting and they have to go back home. I'm just like, whoa, that is some kind of dedication to do that over and over. But they have these hunting places there in Nottoway where there's certain parts of it you can hunt, and there's certain parts of it that are refuge. And so because of that, in the certain parts that you can hunt, guess how many ducks are in there? Not very many. I mean, sometimes they get their limits a lot, but sometimes there's not very many, but there's these boundaries. And it's hunting area, refuge. Guess how many ducks are in the refuge? Millions. And believe it or not, ducks can tell time. Right? It's the craziest thing in the world, but ducks can tell time. They know exactly when shooting hours are over, because as soon as shooting hours are over, the ducks from the refuge fly right back into the hunting area. It's crazy. It's bizarre. But they know. They've learned that this is our safe zone. This is where we are safe and they can't harm us. And I just have this picture in my mind. Of course, I grew up watching, Daffy Duck and all that kind of stuff. So I just have this picture in my mind that all the ducks are over there and they're just going, they're laughing, and all these hunters, they're laying out there in their little layback boats, freezing to death, you know what I mean? And just, anyway. But it's a refuge, okay? So it's a safe place. What else comes to your mind when you think about refuge? Any other terms? Any other things? Can I give you one? It's home. Home. When you read this, and when other places in the Psalms, when you read refuge, I'd kind of like for you to make a note and have it say home. This isn't just my safe place that I run to, right? This is where I live. This is where I dwell. The one who, listen, in verse 1, the one who lives under the protection of Most High can say, he's my refuge. He's my home. For me, home is, so now let me, okay, I'm just going to ask you. So now what do you think of when you think of home? What comes to your mind when you think of home? Well, when I think of Tish's home right now, I'm thinking of pumpkin bars and pecan pie. Because I know that Tish and her mom Evelyn yesterday made pecan pies and pumpkin bars for birthday party today, right? And then somebody else, I don't know who it was, somebody in the comments talked about how good their house must smell, right? home. It's a place of shelter. And when I'm thinking pecan pies and pumpkin bars, I'm also thinking comfort. Right? It's that place that you come to and it's a shelter. It's your comfort. It's your aid. I've mentioned this to you guys before, that home is still that for me, right? Home's where I rest. Home's where I recharge. Home is where, you know what I mean? I mean, a lot of people go on vacations to do that. For me, I go home to do that.
Home is where the
Place
heart
where you let
is.
your guard down.
Right. It's a place that you can just be yourself, right? You don't have to, what were you saying?
Home is where the heart is.
Home is where, it's where love is, right? And it's all of those types of things. And, whenever I was a kid, and some of you guys will relate to this too, we were talking about how tough it was, right? Being a kid in our era, it was awesome, it's great, right? But, we also had tough things that we experienced. And it didn't matter how bad a day I had at school, when I got home, that was all gone, right? That was all behind me. That was all, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, all that just went away. Because I was home. And I just want to encourage you. And I know, and maybe that wasn't, and I know, and I got to be careful about this these days, because I know that isn't the experience that some people have with home. Some people's homes weren't like my home, right? Some places, some people's homes, and especially it's becoming more and more so, where that's not what home is. You know what I mean? For a lot of people, home is a place of strife. Home is a place of conflict. Home is a place where then there's still unease. You know what I mean? They're still not at peace. And maybe that was your experience. Maybe that was what your home was like. But let me, in light of that, just encourage you. If you are a parent or if you are a grandparent, let me just encourage you, make your home a refuge. Right? Do everything that you can. Do everything in your power to make home a place where your kids, whether they're little or whether they're adults, and your grandkids, whether they're little or whether they're teenagers or adults, that they can come back to and let everything else just fade away. Right? Where they can come back to and they can know, hey, I can be myself. I can relax. I can be at ease. I can be at comfort. I can eat pumpkin bars and pecan pie. And I know everybody's like, don't talk like that. We're all trying to keep our New Year's resolutions now that we've got on the other side of the holidays. We're all trying to eat better and do all these things, right? But let home be that, okay? And that can come in various forms, right? So for us, and I know I'm getting way off track here, but for us, we got to have all our kids back at our house, at our home for Christmas, right? And so during that time, I mean, for those of you that know my wife, you can kind of imagine what our home is like around Christmas time. And the lengths that my wife goes to care for even my daughters, right, and our grandkids. We have a room that is just for the moms, right? And in the room, we don't have babies at our house anymore, right? But you know what our house looks like? Our house looks like we have babies because our kids have babies, right? So we have a room with a changing table. We have a room with baby wipes. We have diapers. My wife makes our home so that my girls can bring our grandkids to our house and not even have to bring a diaper bag. We have a recliner, a brand new Lazy Boy recliner bought from Aaron Fraser that I don't get to sit in. Because it is in that room, and it is for those girls when they are feeding our babies. Right? Or when they are reading to our babies before they lay them down in their beds in that room for that nap or for the night. Make your home a refuge. Whatever that means, whatever that takes, right? Now that's the way it looks at my house. But then when I got called to my cousin's the other day to go and visit his house, guess what that refuge was like? I wish he would have told me before. I should have known. I should have known better. I was going to an Ellis's, not a Gilbert's, because Gilbert's function that way. Ellis's function this way. I got called to my cousin Kendall's, and I get there, and Kendall's nowhere to be found. Edward, my other cousin from Ohio, is nowhere to be found. And Kendall's wife says, well, they will be back in a little bit. They went to town to buy some lumber. And so they are carrying on the family tradition of Albert Ellis, where if you're coming and you're going to be at home, he's going to get some work done. So we built a new ramp, a new entryway to their house the day before they were getting ready to host their whole community group for a New Year's Eve celebration. And so I'm out there. I didn't have any of the right boots on. I didn't have the right clothes on, but we're out there and we're cutting up lumber and we're, you know what I mean? We're tearing out the old one. We're putting it on all the new one. But you know what? Even that was a refuge, right? The girls were inside. They were doing their thing, and we were outside and we were doing our thing. And part of that, though, was carried on from whenever, now don't get me wrong, my grandpa, it wasn't all about work. It was also about a whole bunch of those other things, a whole bunch about time and fun and eating and all that other kind of thing. But my Ohio family would come back and they'd be there for like 2 weeks. And so Grandpa needed to have a project for all those city kids, right? And the other thing was my Uncle Everett had grown up on a farm in Oklahoma. I've told you this probably before, but he'd grown up on a farm in Oklahoma too. And then he was like a bigwig he designed airplanes and stuff. He was like the expert on the Russian MiG fighter, all this kind of stuff. And so guess what Uncle Everett wanted to do while he was back at the farm? He wanted to just go out and get on a tractor, right? And so Uncle Everett would just be out there and he'd just mow hay, and mow hay, because it's usually summertime. You know what I mean? But that was a comfort. That was a refuge for him, Marvin, to go and to do that. You know, to get away from all that other stuff, you know what I mean, in his life, kind of go back to his roots and kind of reconnect again a little bit, right? So make your home a refuge. Whatever that shape, however that fits your family, however that fits your personality, make your home a comfort, a place of comfort, a place of shelter, a place of aid. And that's what we have in God. God is our refuge. He is where we live, guys. We don't live out here and all that. We live in Him. And He wants to provide that kind of thing for us. Shelter, comfort, aid, and it is available for us who trust in Him. And He's not only a refuge, but then what's the next thing He is? He's our fortress. Now that has a different sound to it, right? What comes to your mind when you think fortress?
Protection.
Protection, right? What else? Weapons, right? Defenses, right? Weapons, that type of thing. Yeah.
He surrounds you.
Yeah, you're encompassed. If home is refuge, for me, church is fortress. You ever think about this place as being like a fortress? And it's not the building, right? It's not the building. But all those things you guys just said, defenses, weapons, what was it you just said? Being encompassed. When I'm around you guys, I feel that. When I'm with you in this room, when I'm with you in that room, I just, for a little bit, not much else can touch me. Right? Still gets through, still affects me, But a lot of the stuff that's out here doesn't get to me so much here. I know it may not always look like it. So, for you praise team folks, it may not always look like it, but this is my happy place. It doesn't always look like it, but just know this is fortress. Right? To me. It's a place that protects us from the ravages of war. We ought to also be looking for those opportunities within our community group and within our church where we are like, it's my job to protect you. It's our job to look out for one another. Right? It's our job whenever one of us is going through trials, whenever one of us is going through difficulties, for the rest of us to surround and defend and to deploy the weapons. And what are our weapons? It's prayer. It's spiritual things, right? Our weapons are not physical. Our weapons are spiritual, right? And so whenever we think that's kind of what church and community group and all of that, it's a place that protects us from the ravages of life. It's a place that protects us from the ravages of just all the trials and all the difficulties that life brings. But remember, I'm taking this out of context. That's a terrible thing for a teacher to say, right? Because these are all things, the psalmist is saying, this is the things that God provides for us. But I just want you to see that these things are things that God has placed within the structure of families, within the structures of churches, for Him to be able to use in our lives. To offer that help, to offer that protection, to offer those kinds of things towards one another as well. So this is really all from God. These are all things we find in Him. But they're also things that He has equipped us as His church and as families to do for one another. To do for our families and to do for one another, ultimately knowing that we are under His protection, first and foremost, overall. Okay? So, He is our refuge. He is our fortress. He is most high. He is almighty. He is a covenant, promise-keeping God in whom we can trust. And He Himself is going to rescue us. That's the most wonderful thing about what we just celebrated at Christmas. The wonderful truth about Christmas is that God didn't stand back away from His sinful creation. But He took on human flesh. He suffered as we suffered. He faced temptation. And yet in all of this, He did not sin, but He became the ultimate rescuer. And He has done that. The power of God is unmatched in this universe. Nothing can come close to matching Him. And that is the testimony of this psalm. And that's why, a little bit, I want to attribute it to Moses. Because I think Moses really experienced all these things. And he is testifying. God is our refuge. God is our fortress. And I can just hear him saying that as they're wandering in desert, as they're living in tents, right? As they're totally exposed, and he's shouting it to the people. God is our refuge. God is our strength. We have nothing to fear. And I think that's a little bit the way that we kind of feel out in the world today. Right? And we need to hear that. That God is with us and God is for us. All right, I spent way too much time on that first one, but I really like some of the stuff in that first one. Somebody read verses 9 through 13. We'll wrap this up quickly here.
Because you have made the Lord my refuge, the Most High, your dwelling place, no harm will come to you, no plagues will come near your tent, for He will give His angels orders concerning you to protect you in all your ways. They will support you with their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the cobra. You will trample the young lion and the serpent.
All right, anybody trampled a young lion or a cobra lately? Probably not, right? There's one little line in that really jumps out and pops at a lot of you. A lot of you, as you read that, you read that line in verse 11 and you said, "For he will give his angels orders concerning you to protect you in all your ways." What came to your mind when you read that? Anybody? Or am I the only one?
What Satan said to Christ.
This is exactly what Satan quoted to Christ. You know, whenever Satan quotes to Christ, "Throw yourself down off this temple," this is what he's quoting, right? And he's saying, God's already said he's going to give his angels charge over you, and he's not going to let you strike your foot against the stone. Well, I've stubbed my toe plenty, right? So how do we balance what this says with that idea? This isn't a promise that no harm is ever going to come to you, right? What is it a promise of, then? If it's not that, what is it a promise of?
That he's always there no matter what.
Yeah.
God's got your back.
Yeah.
I like the, you were talking about, this is Moses.
Maybe, yeah. Don't. I don't want to drag you all down that hole with me, but go ahead.
But as it says, no harm will come to your tent.
Yeah.
Well, if it were later,
Yeah.
next time, they wouldn't use tent.
Right.
Whereas Moses, everybody was living in tents.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Thank you. We got to go back. Right? Did I miss this part? Did I miss? I missed verse 4. I really wanted to talk about verse 4 in the previous. Back up. Back up. Beep, 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 beep. Let's get back here to verse 4 in this again. Leave this line in verse 4. He will cover you with his feathers. You will take refuge under his wings. What's that imagery? What is that imagery? Come on, chicken farmer. What's that imagery? What's that imagery right there? Right. It's a picture of a, well, yeah. Does God have wings? Does God have feathers? I don't know. Probably not. We're not supposed to take this part literally, right? But yeah, there's this image here of that kind of a hen covering over her brood, you know, over her chicks, and I like that. It's good imagery. You know, whenever they were originally settling these areas and west of here, you know, most of the grass that we have around here now is what we call cool season grasses, okay? And it's grass, it's stuff that we planted, right? But before that, what was native mostly to this area was warm season grasses, right, Marvin? And any of you have been around any warm season grasses? Okay. What are some warm season grasses, Marvin? What's the difference?
Like a thicker blade, longer.
Yeah, gets pretty tall. Gets tall. It doesn't grow like our cool season grasses. When's your yard the best? In the spring, right? Your yard's best in the spring and maybe in the late fall, in the cooler times of the year. Your yard actually goes a little bit dormant unless you spray it and then it dies. But it goes dormant during the July times. You know, during July and August, you don't have to mow as much. Pretty much during that time, unless you have Chad's yard where he does all this amazing stuff. He's got a green thumb. But in July and August, I'm not mowing much grass. I'm pretty much just mowing weeds, right? That's about all it's growing in my yard during that time is weeds. But warm season grass grows and does really good in the hot time of the year. It's kind of a short season grass, gets really tall. Some of the kinds that are around now are called switchgrass, called blue stem, stuff like that. Anyway, but they grow really, really tall. And but the thing about them is for it to be healthy, you almost have to burn it off every year. Okay? And warm season grass has a real high oil content in it. In fact, they can actually make fuel out of, you can make fuel, diesel fuel out of warm season grass, hay, stuff like that. But whenever warm season grass catches on fire, it burns. And it burns hot because of the oil content, but it doesn't burn for very long. And back when they were actually settling these areas and west of here, one of the biggest threats was fire. Prairie fires in particular. And lightning strikes, anything like that, late in the summer or in the fall when that grass started to die, when it wasn't green anymore, was very, very harmful. And it would just go across the prairies and just burn and burn and burn like crazy. You know what an interesting thing was? They would go back after prairie fires, and you know what they would find? They would find baby chickens alive. You know why baby chickens survive prairie fires? Because the hens covered them. A mother hen would literally bring her chicks under her wings, cover them up, and when they came back after the fire, they would find the hen had died, but underneath that hen, those little chicks would still be alive. And that is amazing. That is not only the love of a mother, but that is the kind of protection that we are under when we are under the wings of God. The other possible imagery that should maybe come to our mind here a little bit also is there's another imagery that was being carried around in the wilderness with them. Okay? And it was inside the tabernacle. And it was on top of the Ark of the Covenant. What was on top of the Ark of the Covenant?
Angels with wings outstretched.
Cherubim, right? There's two cherubim on either sides of the Ark of the Covenant, and their wings stretch across the top of it and almost touch, right? And so it's possible also that the author of this psalm, whenever he is saying he will cover you with his feathers, you will take refuge under his wings. What he's not talking about, he's not necessarily talking about angels coming to protect us, but he's talking about, I'm going to run to the presence of God. When trouble comes, I'm running to the holy place. Now, they couldn't go into the Holy of Holies, right, where the Ark of the Covenant was, but that is the picture. I'm going to take refuge in God. I'm going to take refuge in his presence. Okay, sorry. I just had to tell that story about chicks. I love that. Anyway, as a kid that grew up having to take care of chickens, but I still stand by my statement. The one good chicken is a fried chicken. So anyway, somebody jump ahead. I want to read, let's read verses 14, 15, and 16, and we will wrap this up. I promise I will be done in the next 4 minutes.
Because he has his heart set on me, I will deliver him. I will protect him because he knows my name. When he calls out to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and give him honor. I will satisfy him with a long life and show him my salvation.
Okay. The psalm turns here. And it's almost as if God's speaking in third person now. Okay? And as God speaks, he's commending the person who has his heart set on him. Because he has his heart set on me. That word for set on literally means to be attached. It doesn't mean that I'm thinking about him sometimes. It doesn't mean that, he's out there for me on Sunday morning. It's, I am attached to him. And he is attached to me. I have latched on and I will not let go. And because we have latched on to him, it's a picture of love. It's a picture of attachment between two people that is emotional, spiritual, physical, mental. And on a lot of occasions, whenever God uses this imagery, he's using it the other way around. And he's saying, because I have set my love on Israel. He says, because I've set my love on them, I'm going to do all these things. And more often than not, in those contexts, he's saying, I'm going to do it even though they don't deserve it. They break my promises. They break my covenant. They don't do what I want to do. But because I've set my love on them, I'm going to keep doing these things. But this time it's turned around. And God's saying, if we will set our love on him, if we will attach to him, he says, I will deliver. I will protect. I will answer. I will rescue. I will save. And how do we get that attachment? We get that attachment because we know his name. Did you hear that line in there? I will deliver him because he knows my name. I'm afraid way too many Christians, way too many believers today are living their life like a popular country song right now. And now it's leaving my mind. What's a popular country song right now where oh God, just lost it. I'll think of it tomorrow. Anyway, but there's a popular country song right now that basically goes that he only prays to God whenever he needs a favor. You know what? Anybody else know what song I'm talking about now? How's it go, Emily?
Somebody Save Me by Jelly Roll.
What is it?
I only talk to God when I need a savior.
Or when I need a Savior.
Yeah.
So how should I call upon a Savior
Yeah.
in my, you know what I mean? But then he goes on and he says, but God, I need a favor. Or something like that. It's, what is it?
Jelly Roll. Who does it?
Okay, Jelly Roll. That's a great name for a band. But I think that there's an awful lot of us that are like that. We only talk to God when we need a favor. We only cry out when we're in trouble. And let's not and I'm not saying don't do that, okay? I agree with that sentiment. When you're in trouble, cry out. When you need help, cry out. When you need a favor, cry out. But you know what else? I need help all the time. I need a favor every day. And I need a Savior. And I need to attach myself to him. I need to know him by name. I need to know him in such a way through a personal relationship that's only available through Jesus Christ, that we are in step with one another, so much so that I know him as well as I know my spouse. I know him better than I know my kids. Right? And I know him. We need to know him through relationship. We need to have our heart set on him. And the psalmist says here, he doesn't just know about the Lord intellectually. He knows the Lord personally. He knows him by name. He knows him as Most High. He knows him as Almighty. He knows him as Yahweh. He knows him as I Am. He knows him as Redeemer, Fortress, Deliverer. He knows him as all of these things. And God says in response to the psalmist, I'm going to deliver. I'm going to protect. I'm going to rescue him. I'm going to give him honor. And I'm going to satisfy him. Right? Does that mean all our troubles fade away?
No, of course.
No. Right? Of course it doesn't, right? Yeah. But we know that we can still have a place to run to. A place to find home, church, God, God's people, and have weapons deployed on our behalf. All right. 2 minutes past. All right. You get out of here. Next week we'll start our new unit on something else. Owning a faith that matters is what we'll be doing next week.